Washoe County Open Space and Regional Parks Commission to order at this point. However, we do not have a quorum today. So what we're going to do is not deliberate on any of these agenda items. However, we do have some people that have made time in their day to come down to do some presentations. So we want to give those individuals the opportunity to give the presentation. However, we will not be discussing or voting on anything. So, given that, we're going to move right along to item 6, which is acknowledgement of any park personnel that should be acknowledged. Not today. Okay. Then we move on to item number 7, which is presentation by Nick Johnson, project manager for NDOT, on the update for SR 27 Tahoe East Shore Trail, otherwise known as the State Line Bikeway. So, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I'm Dennis Troy, park planner, as you are well aware, not for the record. Exactly like you said, Commissioner Daniel, I'd like to introduce Nick Johnson. He is the project manager on the SR 28 project, which encompasses quite a few different things associated with water quality, as well as pedestrian and a bicycle path as well. So Nick has a PowerPoint for us, and then also a really neat flyover of what the project actually looks like. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Johnson to you.
Good afternoon, board members, and thanks, Dennis, for the introduction. I'm Nick Johnson, project manager with NDOT. So this afternoon, I have a few slides here to share with you with the State Route 28 project that we're currently working on. And as Dennis mentioned, most notably the first 3 miles there of the North Demo, or the State Line Bikeway Trail, which I'll go over, but we also have a number of other things as well. But before I jump into the details, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge all the project partners, including Washoe County, who's been a tremendous partner in this project, and the staff. I have worked a lot with Cheryl Surface, just a great help. And all these agencies that you see up here, even though NDOT was leading the way on the design and now the construction of it, everybody had a significant role in this, including maintenance or funding or some aspect of the project. And so it was really a collaborative effort to get the project to where it is today. Let's see here. I guess it's... Is it not moving for me? Well, maybe I'll have to. Oh, did it get stuck? Oh, there we go. Okay, so this project, and again, most notably is the trail itself, but it's really a corridor improvement project along State Route 28. And so the total limits of all the work we're doing start at the southern part of Incline and then head south all the way to the junction of US 50. We're building 3 miles of the trail, which start just in front of the Tunnel Creek Cafe there at the south end of Incline, and it also includes a 90 stall parking area, so folks come in and park, and then they can jump on the trail, and the trail will go all the way down to Sand Harbor State Park, where it'll terminate for now, and then eventually the greater plan is to continue that trail all the way state line to state line, but on State Route 28, at least the next phase down to the junction at US 50. While we were at it, when we took this project over, there's also a number of other improvements we want to do out there. And so one of the things that we've done over the years is make water quality improvements along 28. And I'll go over what those are. But essentially, the whole idea is that we're improving, the drainage so that it filters out some of the oils and sands we get from the roadway as it makes its way down the lake, and help a lot with the erosion control and things like that. And this is a section that we hadn't done yet. So it's about 3 miles south down to the Washoe County line along 28. Another big improvement we're doing is we're also installing conduit into State Route 28 for future fiber optics and telecommunications. So our goal is, as we do projects along the roadways up there at the base, and we can start installing installing fiber so that we can, get better telecommunications as well as, fiber optics up there in the basin. And then probably maybe not the most exciting, but one of the biggest things we're doing on this project is improving safety. And I think this slide and the pictures that you see up here on this slide really speak to safety and why we're doing this. And I know many folks are very excited about the recreational use of this trail. And in many ways, it's going to be a destination, probably for many. They'll go up there just to use this trail. But there's, much greater benefits by having the parking in place and then having a way for folks to get to the destination they're going to. Currently, and I'm sure you guys have driven up there and seen this yourselves, but folks park on the side of the road. As you see in the bottom picture there, you have folks parking into the lane lines or walking up and down the highway just to get down to the beach. So by having that parking in place, giving them access via the trail, we can now make this a no parking zone for that 3 miles, and we can help improve the safety of the motorists, the public, the bicyclists, everybody using 28. And so I'll start with some of the safety improvements, and then I'll save the trail for last here. But here are a couple of things that we're doing. The biggest thing is eliminating parking within this 3 miles. So as I mentioned, once the trail's done, we have the parking area built. Folks can now go park in those designated parking stalls, and they can use the trail to get to where they need to go, and we will eliminate that parking within that 3 miles. Now, we've been working a lot with NHP, and even now during construction, they're out there already starting to enforce that, and so they're very much behind it, and we'll help enforce that as we move forward into the future. We'll also be installing centerline rumble strips down the road to help with crossovers with vehicles as you drive down 28, and to go along with that, with eliminating the parking, you got to have some pull-out areas in case there's emergencies or for emergency vehicles for folks to get in there. So we're going to formalize those and do some paved pull-outs. And then with the trail itself down by Lakeshore Boulevard on the southern end of incline, we'll have a crossing there, a pedestrian activated crossing like you guys see here that has flashers, so folks who are on Lakeshore side or on the west side of 28 can cross over to access the trail. And then the last thing on here that we added during the project, and every time I get the chance to, I try to let everybody know. But for those who go up to Sand Harbor, currently there's a sign right in front of the state park that lights up when the parking lot's full. But by the time you've already driven down there, you're too late and you're already stacked up. So we're going to install 2 more of these signs. One of them in incline just north of Lakeshore Boulevard, and the other one down by US 50. By Spooner Summit there. So by having those 2 in place, when the park's full, they could light it up, and then the folks will have opportunity to turn around. So if you're up there and you're going to Sand Harbor, here in the near future, look out for these signs, and they'll let you know in advance so that you can flip a U-turn before you get stuck in the traffic down there in front of the park. So here's a couple of graphics. The top one, it's a little hard to see up there, but that represents the parking areas. So there, like I said, there's about 90 stalls. We went out and counted in the kind of the peak hour there of the summer, how many cars were parked along the shoulder between Incline and Sand Harbor, and there's about 100 to 110, and this is going to be approximately 90. So it doesn't capture all of them, but it captures about roughly 90% of the parking that's currently out there that we're going to be taking away. So folks who do go and use this, it will be a paid parking facility, so you'd have to pay to park there, but a lot of that revenue is going to go back to maintaining this facility once it's built and moving forward. And then on the bottom, that's just a graphic, that red line showing the total area that once this 3 miles is built, that'll be a no parking zone. Here's just a couple of quick graphics of the types of things we do out there for water quality improvements. We have the infiltration basins. That's that big picture right there. So any of the drainage that we get off the roadway, the water will go and sit in there and eventually filter into the ground. It helps capture some of the sands and salts, especially from the winter maintenance, up there plowing. the two pictures there on the bottom right, that was the system we installed in our maintenance yard, an Epic drain system, and that's really good at capturing the oils from all our maintenance vehicles and things like that. And so we've actually used that same system in the parking area. So as cars are driving in, it can get a lot of that dirt, those sands, those oils, filter it out, and then it'll drain back towards the lake. So now for the exciting part here, the shared use path. So it's roughly 3+ miles from Incline down to Sand Harbor. The northern mile will be up on the east side of 28, up on the hill. It crosses underneath 28 through a tunnel, and then the last 2 miles are along the shoreline all the way down to Sand Harbor. What you see here in that bigger picture there on the left, we call them Vista Points. The Tahoe Fund raised roughly about $1 million to $1.5 million for this project, and these Vista Points here represent different areas, scenic overlooks along the trail. Folks chipped in quite a bit of money for the trail, and their name will be up there. You can kind of see a plaque sitting there on the wall itself that recognizes their donations to it. But you'll have a number of these. I think there's 17 in total along this 3 miles, so you can pull over, enjoy the view, take pictures, things like that. And as many of you are aware, the terrain out there is very steep and challenging. So we have a number of bridges and retaining walls. Roughly a mile of this trail will have some form of structure, whether it be a wall or a bridge, just due to the terrain and trying to fit this path in somewhere where we could keep it up in those areas. So with that being said, I have a video here that we show for a few minutes. I'll kind of walk you through it. And we'll mute the elevator music as well. So there's just a graphic showing that 3 miles. That first mile closer to Incline will be up on the hill, and the rest of it along the beach. And so this is one of the bigger walls on the project coming out of Incline. There's some of the view of the Vista Point. And this graphic is actually next to Memorial Point. And that view is looking from the Sand Harbor boat ramp area back towards 28. So if you see here just above the text there's 2 bridges as you leave Sand Harbor. So this is moving northbound to kind of span over some very steep and rocky terrain there. And you can see as you move north here, there's some very challenging areas to build on, a lot of walls. And what you see there, a lot of that light color is it'd be more of earthwork. They'll be filling in, but it won't look like that when we're all done. We'll have rocks, trees, hydroseeded, so some of that stuff will grow back over time to blend in with the natural surroundings. And right here, you can start to see some of the retaining walls that will have to be built just below 28 to fit that path in along the shoreline. All the walls will be, I guess we call shotcrete or concrete sprayed up on the wall and then sculpted to match the rocks in the areas. And so when this goes back the other way, I'll show you the long bridge. We have one bridge on this project that spans almost 900 feet. And so right here, we're approaching the Hidden Beach area. And at this location, we'll have some new restrooms up close to the shore. The path will, closer to the roadway there. State parks facilities with bike racks. The path will actually go underneath State Route 28 and up onto the hillside. And so this is as you're cruising along towards the Incline. And there again, you can see some of those pull-out areas for views. And this will be just above the Rocky Point subdivision. And then as we get closer to Incline, this is one of the steeper areas. The path will drop down. You can see the wall there along 28 and then head into the parking area. And so if any of you have driven up there lately, we've had crews out there the past few weeks removing some of the major boulders along that slope right there. And then in the distance, you can see where the parking area will be constructed. Well, majority of it is at this point. And so this is going back the other way. So you make that climb up into the hills. And then the path will start to drop down, and we'll cross underneath the roadway right there at Hidden Beach. And then the rest of it's along the lakeside. And we're coming up right here, as I mentioned, is the longest bridge we have on the project. It's almost 900 feet in total length. You know, one of the goals of this project, State Route 28 is a scenic highway, so we try to keep this path down and out of the sight line of the vehicles or anybody up on 28. And then as you get to Memorial Point, it'll go out closer to the lake. It'll have one ramp down to and from the parking area up there at Memorial Point. These are the last few bridges before you get to Sand Harbor. Now the trail will end just in front of Sand Harbor, and then there'll be a sidewalk down to the boat ramp entrance. So if you want to go hang out at the beach for the day, you can do so. You can go down to the boat ramp entrance and pay a fee at that location. So we've been working on this project, I'd say just about a year and a half now. And last year we got a small piece of it out late in the year. Granite Construction was our contractor, and what you see here is we were able to install the tunnel. We were able to relocate the IVGIT sewer lines that are currently in 28 down and out of the way, install the tunnel, and build about 2/3 of the parking area. So what you see up there with the tunnel itself, they were able to dig the road up, install the tunnel, and have it back open in 11 days. So we were able to do all this work in just about 2 months. Started August 15th, and we were able to wrap it up by October 15th. And this is just a project timeline. I think this came across my desk about January of last year. And so since that time, we were able to finish the NEPA document. We used a delivery method called Construction Manager at Risk, where we hired Granite Construction during the design to help us with the design so we could figure out the best way to build this project as quickly as we could. Last year, we built the first phase of it, and then we started work for the second phase, which includes all that work that I talked about earlier. We started, I think, just before May 1st. And so we anticipate everything we set up and our goal was to get this project done in about 2 years by the end of 2018. But pending the weather, I mean, if we continue to have the type of weather we did this past winter, that could easily push it off to the spring of 19. And then last, again, just to let everybody know, there will be 1-lane closures on 28 for the next 2 summers. What you see there in the yellow, that's the area between Incline and Sand Harbor. There'll be, during the daytime, you'll see the 1-lane closures. Memorial Point will be closed, so just expect those delays. And then at night, a lot of the safety and water quality improvement work, they're gonna do that during the nighttime. That's south to Sand Harbor. So if you know, day or night, if you head up there, just be prepared that they'll have a lane closed. It's a 20-minute, 30-minute delay, so plan ahead. And with that, I will open it up for any questions.
We can, I think.
Yeah.
We can ask questions, we can vote. Well, all right. The only question I have is I'm just curious what the diameter of the conduit is that you have, that you're putting down.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying
I'm
to
sorry
remember.
to
here.
ask,
No, I think they're.
It's nothing to do. I just was curious how big of conduit you guys usually lay for looking into the future. It has nothing to do with parks or anything. I was just,
I think if I remember correctly, I think we have 5 conduits in total. So one's for power and the other 4 for fiber and telecommunications. I think the ones that are for fiber, I want to say are 2 1/4 inch diameter, and I want to say the power might be 3 or 4.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming today, and I'm sorry we don't have a quorum. This is fantastic. It's great. I've been here for a while, and I kind of was always wondering when we would actually see something, and so this is terrific. It sounds like we'll have a usable trail at the end of next year, or, you know, the end of 2018.
That's our goal.
And how far is it then? You know, there's a little bit finished already up near State Line. How far is that away from Sand Harbor?
On the south end, the southern part State Line or northern?
The part,
Well, I know that I guess it would have been about 4 or 5 years ago. We did a section down in South Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
In that section, I believe that was from, I think it was at Elks Point Road north past Zephyr Cove or down to Zephyr Cove. So we're quite a few miles away.
but isn't there another place at State Line too? And I was just wondering how far that was.
Yeah, Karen knows all the trails up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Karen Mullen, and having walked it and done it, what I believe you're talking about, Commissioner, is from State Line, which is Laura Drive area or Kale Raid Meadow area, was the first phase. We did from Kale Drive to Elk Point Road. That was a mile approximately. Then NDOT helped us with the portion from Elks Point Road to Round Hill Pines, which is a beach area, and then went back and picked up a piece that took us from Kale back towards the casino area at the South Shore, and that was just a short piece along Laurel Drive. And the portion that will go by Edgewood Golf Course, which will connect the casino core, is a part of the Highway 50 project. So that will be done as part of that. In total, it's a little over 3 miles on the South Shore. Then you do have a fairly significant gap up to Sand Harbor. In total, the whole bikeway project is State Line to State Line, somewhere around 32 miles total. 3 will be completed then, 3 will be completed during this project with Nick. So total of a little bit 6-ish. And we're working on the environmental from Sand Harbor to Highway 50, which is approximately 8 miles. So that's a long shot at it, but 6 miles to be completed by 2018, we hope, or 19. And then we've got 8 miles under environmental
Well, that's great.
review.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Do you want to do that? Okay, well, I have no public comment cards. If we're going to still take public comment on the presentation. Any public comment on that? Seeing none, we'll move on. Presentation by May Arboretum Society on Chinese Lantern Festival.
Okay, hello. Colleen Wallace-Barnum, Parks Operations Superintendent. I'm pleased to present Lynn Bethel. She's the president of the May Arboretum Society, and she's going to be presenting for you today a Chinese Lantern Festival. A company out of China came to the May Arboretum Society probably early this year in 2017. in fall of last year, sorry. And since we have a fence that completely encompasses the entire Arboretum, it makes this type of an event possible. And I think Lynn, along with the pictures, will do a great job describing what this could be, and it's a potential future event. We're working on an agreement with this company for summer, July of 2018. So Lynn Bethel with the May Arboretum Society.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is this working? Perfect. So the name of the company is right up there at the top. Their actually headquarters here in the United States is in Chicago. They've done these particular lantern festivals internationally, as well as in those particular cities nationally here in the United States, currently in Syracuse, New York, going on right now. And they're going back to others, and I didn't add Philadelphia. I don't know what I was thinking. They've been in Philadelphia and going back to Philadelphia again this coming year. They were also featured in the James Bond film Skyfall. So if you're a fan of James Bond, you'll see the different effects that they can possibly do when they're coming here to Reno. So as it was mentioned, they did contact me and the May Arboretum Society in the fall of 2016, wondering about the use, partnering with us in the use of the May Arboretum and Botanical Garden. They do many of these festivals in botanical gardens, and that's the reason why they contacted us. The setup takes about 3 weeks. The festival will run again about 5 weeks, starting planning the setup sometime around the mid-June of 2018, finishing that up to start the festival in July of 2018, which is great because Art Town, of course, is going on. So it really complements all of the different activities that nonprofit organization does here for the city of Reno. The Lantern Festival Company is responsible for just about everything. The transport, setup, maintenance, insurance, security, bathrooms, promotion, ticket sales, etc. What we're doing is we're providing the space, the May Arboretum and Botanical Gardens. They also bring a cultural aspect, so there'll be a stage where they'll be able to do acrobatics, dance, kung fu, performances, Chinese handicrafts going on. They usually have between 70 and 80,000 attendees over that span of time, which would be about 5 weeks here in Reno. Normally it's about 7 to 8, sometimes a little bit longer in other venues, but they understand that at this point we just want it for 5 weeks. It's a ticketed evening event, so they would be closing the Arboretum down at about 5 o'clock to about 10 to 11. I didn't finish that there, I'm sorry. They have discounts provided to special categories such as veterans, students. Part of the contracting will be asking for discounts for May Arboretum Society members. They've also, because we explained to them that the Arboretum at this point in time is open to the general public at all times, it would still remain open and free admission. So people can come in and look at those lanterns during the day at no charge, and they certainly do have a bit of different aesthetics during the day. They also talked about being able to have different types of performances during the day that would be no charge as well. So again, about 70 to 80,000 attendees. One of the benefits is that it would be a 90-10 split of ticket sales. So 10% of those ticket sales would go directly to the Arboretum's restricted fund to help the Arboretum in its support and maintenance and educational activities. This is the proposed map where they're proposing 25 different lanterns. We're working closely with Bill Carlos, the horticulturist, and the personnel at the Arboretum to be sure that the lanterns that they've chosen will work in the specific areas. And they're going to be coming back out this summer to take another look at the garden to rearrange the different lanterns. But if you notice number to the left of 25 is the ranch house. And so you would see the opening is where number 1 is, and that's where the people would enter into the Arboretum. And then cross over the bridge, and then head back around to be able to go around the path into the Plaza Garden. 19 is where the museum, the back of the museum is, and head back around. So this is a photo of what it would look like coming into the Arboretum with the Chinese lantern. So that would be that O2 or that entrance that I showed you. This is one of them that would be out across the bridge. Another one on the other side. If you look at the little rectangle that's down in the lower right-hand corner, you can see where they're proposing that these lanterns would sit within the Arboretum. And then different lanterns hanging from trees as well, just to show what that would look like. Do you know if that'll play on your end? It's a video. There we go. This was in Columbus, Ohio. It's about a minute. Thank you. So next steps, the contract is being reviewed by the Society's attorney, and then it will go to Washoe County's attorneys to be able to look at the contract. And again, we're working closely with Bill Carlos, the horticulturist, to revise placement of any lantern sculptures that may interfere with the irrigation in the plants. I've come before you several different times over the last 3 years talking about the importance of really promoting the Arboretum and the funding for the Arboretum. So we really think this is a wonderful opportunity to be able to get people here to Reno, to be able to see the Arboretum. Oftentimes, I don't know if you meet many people, but we certainly do all the time. We had our annual plant sale this past weekend, and many people were at the Arboretum for the very first time, and they'd lived in Reno for years, and they did not know that it was there, and the value to the community. So we really think that we'll be able to draw a lot of people from San Francisco, Sacramento, nearby. The closest Lantern Festival so far has been in Portland, Oregon. So this is really a wonderful opportunity for the Arboretum, the promotion of that, as well as the funding to go to the Arboretum as well. So does anybody have any questions?
First, it looks spectacular. Right?
Good, I'm glad, because you all didn't seem to be too excited. Your facial expressions don't go like, ooh, like we do, so. We think this is a fabulous opportunity. We're very excited.
Excited about a meeting with no quorum. So, but
Well, I'm here,
your
so.
presentation was spectacular.
Thank you.
It was beautiful. The question I have, though, 10%. Do you know? Do you have a guesstimate?
About $100,000.
The 100,000 into your fund?
Yes.
Oh, good.
About $100,000.
Good.
It's about, we figure about 70,000. The adult ticket sales run about $15, children are 10. So if we figured just based on children, if we based it only on 80,000 children coming in, we would have $80,000. So it's going to be a mix.
And that's just for the nighttime event?
Correct, yeah. So we were very, very clear that people needed to be able to access the Arboretum during the day, and they were totally fine with that, and letting people walk through to see the lanterns during the day at no charge.
Great.
Yeah, very excited.
I think this is terrific. I really was very impressed. I'm sorry if my face didn't show it.
Yeah.
I was thinking I'd have to try and get my grandchildren here
There
in
you go.
July of next year. I think they'd love it. I do have one question for you. This is a Chinese cultural event, correct?
Yes.
Does the Chinese government have any input in that particular company?
It does not, no. They're an independent company on their own, and part of it is dependent on them getting their visas. They actually bring people from China here to set up these lanterns, and then they remain here. A few of them remain here for the maintenance aspect of it. So, but it's a separate company.
And so it's not sponsored by the
Not that
Chinese-
not that we have been able to find out. So,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
I would just like to say that I think you're doing an amazing job of making the May Arboretum Society a really beneficial organization for the Arboretum. I think this is a great event.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I was just curious, have you reached out to the Chinese community in Washoe County?
We have not reached out to the Chinese community. The part of the promotion will be, as I said, they're taking care of promotion, but clearly we've talked to them about getting different people involved. I'm assuming they're going to have to hire people as well because they're doing the ticket sales themselves, the security themselves, and things like that. My assumption is perhaps maybe they have a tie to that community themselves, but it would certainly be something to do, as well as the same community in San Francisco and Sacramento as well.
Mm-hmm. Just that there's some, the history of in Reno with the Chinese community. You might want to think about talking to them now.
Okay.
Just 2 cents. Otherwise, yeah, this is a great event here. So,
Perfect.
any other comments? If not, thank you.
Sure, just one more plug. So, sorry. Our plant sale continues to go on this week through Friday, 9 to 1 at the May Arboretum Society in the Lav House. And we actually got 54 new memberships this past week. So we continue to grow our membership, the more people that come to the society and come to the events at the Arboretum. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Crump.
And before she leaves, I just want to thank you, Lynn, for everything you've done. This really came to fruition because of her and her efforts in the May Embassy. Thank you.
Great. Okay, great. We are skipping 9. All right, I see no public comment. Is there any public comment on the Lantern Festival? Seeing none, we'll move on. All right, skip 9. Looks like skip 10.
Are we skipping 10?
I think we're gonna skip 10. I'd rather have that's for action, so, isn't it?
Yeah.
Number 9 is not an action. It's
Oh.
just a presentation on budget. Dave was prepared to come. He asked me to text him to see if there was a quorum. He prefers to provide that presentation when there is a quorum, so he was ready in his defense, but he's opted not to come because there wasn't a
No,
quorum.
I agree completely.
So
Should wait.
number 10, if I will, it was an action item, but we do have some representatives from Tumwa here to provide a quick presentation of the proposed easement.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Afternoon. John Bizzoni with Stantec for the record. I'm a consultant to Tumwa. Tumwa has been looking at serving water in the Mount Rose fan area for about the last year. They've assumed the water system in that area from Washoe County, and it's long been recognized, let me see if I can get this to work, that there's a water supply shortage in the area. The area is primarily served by groundwater, and over the last year in particular with the drought, a number of domestic wells and municipal wells have been experiencing some failures and problems. They've long recognized that an alternative water supply is needed, and a treatment plant has even been planned up in that area to treat surface water from Galena Creek, Whites Creek, and Thomas Creek. And so Tumwa brought forward a project to develop that treatment plant and pull water out of Whites Creek and Thomas Creek. At this moment, Tumwa is really looking at just pulling water from Whites Creek and treating it at a plant to be developed just off of the Mount Rose Highway. And I'll show you where that is to be located here. I've got a little map showing you the location. So you can see Mount Rose Highway, 580's off to the far right there. And you'll see that it's going just off the Whites Creek there, behind that newer development off Mount Rose Highway. It's kind of at the end of Callahan Ranch Road. Callahan Ranch Road currently stops just before the creek, but a bridge has just recently been constructed and will continue on up and tie into Mountain Ranch Road just on the north side of Whites Creek. So what Tum was asking for is the right or an easement to construct a diversion and a pump station on Washoe County Parks property. Will also need to have a gravel access road, and of course there will be some piping and valves and some power utilities to support the project. Here's kind of an overview of what the plan would look like. I'm sorry my graphics aren't quite as beautiful as the previous ones, but you can see the future treatment plant, and the area outlined in red is what we're proposing or requesting for the easement. You'll see that that diversion is going to be in the creek. It's kind of a unique diversion in that it's primarily beneath the creek. So during construction, we're going to have to reroute the creek around the construction site, and we're going to construct essentially a graveled box beneath the creek and then rebuild the creek around it. So it should have a very minimal footprint when you get to completion. Also, there's a pump station at the back end. You can see that called out there, and that is going to be it'll be about 15 by 30 feet in size, and it's essentially going to be just a concrete box, so it's only going to stick up maybe a foot or two above grade, so it'll largely be hidden. I would point out that Whites Creek Trail is just on the south side of the creek. We picked these spots because they are largely invisible to pedestrians on Whites Creek Trail. And I'll show you, here's kind of a blow-up of it, but note that photo point, and I'm going to show you a picture of the proposed diversion location here in just a moment. But here's kind of a blow-up of what the layout's going to look like. So how are we going to go about minimizing? We recognize that the Whites Creek Trail is an important community asset, and so we really worked hard to try and minimize the impact of this project on users of the trail. So we picked a spot that was going to be largely invisible to trail users. We're going to minimize construction on the south side of the creek, so all access will come from the north side. We're going to construct the project. We'd like to construct the project in the fall when creek flows are at their lowest, so we can minimize the footprint of the construction project. We have to comply with Army Corps permit requirements for the construction of the project. We're going to revegetate when we're complete with the project, so we're going to reestablish the native vegetation to the extent that we can, and for both the disturbed areas and for the riparian corridor. Part of the 404 Corps permit requirement will be for a long-term maintenance agreement with the Corps. So they're going to have to maintain that vegetation to make sure it becomes established. And one of the key features of that will include providing temporary irrigation to make sure that vegetation is reestablished. And then here's that picture that I was promising from Whites Creek Trail that I took just a couple days ago. But you can't even come close to seeing the creek from the trail, from anywhere along it. The vegetation is really dense, and the creek sits within a fairly deeply incised channel. So from the ground surface there at the background where that sagebrush is down to the top of the creek, it's probably a 10 to 15 foot drop. So there's just really no way of physically seeing the project from the trail. So that was kind of the extent of my presentation, so I would entertain any questions if you have them.
Just a couple of, obviously you've engineered it to mitigate any flooding issues that may occur.
Yes.
I know that is deeply incised there, but in heavy rains, it can get full.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the design process is to make sure that we're not impacting the upstream, downstream 100-year flood elevation. So we've considered that in our design, and that's reflected in the core permitting process.
And this is something that will be brought back to us for approval, Eric?
So obviously, expecting a quorum, we had anticipated taking this to the Board of County Commissioners in the June 27th meeting, which staff reports are due tomorrow, so I was waiting on the response from this board. I haven't figured out where we're going to go with that. I guess I would encourage, if you have any questions or comments, you could direct those to me, and we can make sure and incorporate them into the staff report to the board. You could actually send them directly to the board, as they'll be reviewing this.
Well, I guess, given that timeline, what's staff recommendation on it?
So staff's recommendation was to, through the parkland easement policy, was to accept the $3,100. That's what the land appraised for. They did the easement application pursuant to our policy. They had land appraised based on the minimal impact to the existing uses and the future uses of this area. Staff is recommending the mitigation in the form of $3,100 to that particular park district for appraisal.
There's no impacts relative to the building or the road going in or anything like that?
The building and the road are not on the county property, so that's important to note. Those are on private property, so the requested easement is about 12,000 square feet on county property. So it's a really long parcel that the county owns. It's Whites Creek open space. So the treatment facility, the access road and everything, those are off county property. And we condition those through a different special use permit. So we've been working with them for a while.
I know we're not making any kind of a decision, but it seems a very reasonable thing to me, and especially if the people out there need a reliable water source. I don't know what the objections would be, and as I say, we can't vote, but that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and certainly we do have a parkland easement policy. We've been following that. Our parkland easement policy, allows for public utility type uses. It doesn't allow for private uses. This certainly falls within that category, in our opinion. So,
the last question I have really is more of a recreational question based on how much water is going to be diverted, and is the creek going to be dry downstream?
No, that was part of the analysis when we had to file some change applications to get the water rights to allow us to divert at that point. And part of that process, we came up with some in-stream flow recommendations that's pretty much says that the analysis showed how much water we need to keep in the creek to maintain the riparian habitat in a good quality. So we'll always be passing at least that amount or the amount that's necessary to satisfy downstream users, whichever is the greater volume.
I'm not just thinking about the riparian habitat, I'm also thinking of the wildlife. Part of the beauties of hiking trails are the abundance of wildlife and vegetation and just the joy of hiking and getting in shape. But if there's no water in the creek, then it kind of diminishes that opportunity.
Yeah, part of the expectations for this project is to take water when it's available. So it's part of a larger conjunctive use program and strategy in which we'll take water when it's available, which is going to be primarily winter through the snow melt. And there's a reasonable expectation that diversions will fall off and possibly go to zero in August, September, October, November, when creek flows start to drop down.
If I may, will you have some way of storing water to make sure that you have an adequate supply the whole year?
Part of the strategy of this project is to, when that water is available and to treat, they'll make water, put it into the distribution, and what gets consumed will be consumed. And if there's additional water, it will be used to recharge the local aquifer, so you can offset the demands on the groundwater system.
Okay, thank you.
So there is a storage component. It's just not as obvious.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next item, which in this case would be, I suppose, Park of the Week month. And just skip over the appointment at this point.
Skip 11.
Yeah. Go to the Phase 2 irrigation project.
Okay. I'd just like to introduce Mike Kangas. He is our, playground safety inspector, and he is also a project manager for infrastructure preservation projects. And he has been helping oversee this Rancho Irrigation Phase 2 project. It is almost complete, almost being the key word, but without further ado, Mike.
Thank you. Mike Kangas, Park Project and Safety Coordinator. So a little background. With Rancho being one of our busiest parks and hosting many events, the infrastructure was aging, so it was decided to make a replacement on the entire irrigation system. Phase 1 was, the scope of work was to install a new pump intake, new pump station, and a new domestic water supply. This was completed in 2015, and it was funded through CIP. Now here's an overview of Phase 2. And it's essentially, this picture shows the whole park where irrigation was installed, main line. So Phase 2 has a budget of $1.4 million funded from WC1 bond money. It went out to a competitive bid in September of 2016, and Burdick Excavation was awarded the bid. They are a local company out of Mound House. Scope of work. Before the scope of work, though, I want to say with installing this new irrigation system, we were able to take most of the domestic water offline for water in the park. So now it's supplied from Highland Ditch, which is a huge benefit. So scope of work, installed main line, sub-main, all new irrigation valves and sprinkler heads. We added a 2-wire communication system, removed irrigation controllers, old irrigation valves and sprinkler heads, and removed domestic water connections to various areas of the Arboretum. So approximately 42,000 feet of pipe was installed, 710 irrigation heads, 115 irrigation valves, a new central computer. It's a Rainbird computer with site control, and it's controlled by an LDI, which is a large decoder interface. And then traffic-rated valve boxes and concrete collars were added for the overflow. One reason why we went to the traffic-rated valve boxes and concrete collars is the extreme demand that's put in the overflow area with balloon races, car shows, and other various events. So this will help protect the integrity of the irrigation system. So this is Burdick excavation. They're installing the picture on the left. They're installing irrigation main line, and the picture on the right is the sub main. And you can see where they stubbed up for irrigation valves. Please note that although the pipe is purple, we are not on a fluent system. The idea behind going to purple is so that we can know what's actually being used out in the field. There's so much irrigation out there that when we dig, we don't know what we're going to find. So this is installation of the laterals, and this is in the overflow area. So the picture on the left is the trenching and the installation of the heads. The picture on the right is the finished product after they've installed the irrigation pipe, the heads, and then backfilled and compacted. And then they've seeded the trenches as well. So the picture on the left is that of the traffic-rated valve boxes. They are bolted down so the public cannot easily access them. And then the picture on the right is a concrete collar that goes around the irrigation head to protect it. And then this is what the valve boxes and the irrigation heads look like throughout the rest of the park. So like I said before, by removing domestic watering, we were able to remove this pump vault, and actually the electrical panel has been since removed too. But this is in the northeast corner of the overflow, so it's a good addition to remove those obstacles. All right, so the box on the left is the LDI, the large decoder interface. And essentially what this does is it transmits the data from the irrigation computer to the irrigation valves out in the field. And we're able to do that through one 2-wire connection. The box on the right is what's called a TWI, and it is a radial link that the Arboretum uses from the central computer to control their irrigation system. So the picture on the left is the 2-wire. Now this one 2-wire runs throughout the park. We no longer have a need for irrigation controllers, power wire. We're able to do it all through this 2-wire. The picture on the right is what the decoders look like. So each decoder has a specific address, so the irrigation computer knows what to turn on and where. So the decoder will attach to the 2-wire and then to the irrigation valve. So some of the benefits. One of the huge benefits is the Rainbird site control program. We're able to do so many more things than we were before with just straight controllers. Like, we don't have a need for controllers. We also have the ability to remote operate through our tablets and smartphones. So you'll see maintenance people walking through the park on their phones, turning on irrigation heads, adjusting the valves to what they need to water. This gives us the ability to see real-time operation of the irrigation system, and it prevents us from having to make adjustments in the field without having to travel back and forth to the maintenance or to the irrigation controller. Some of the other features of site control is flow management. Every gallon of water is accounted for. We're going to know what goes through each valve and for how many minutes. So this gives us more accountability. We also installed flow sensors and mainline master valves. So in each area, if the flow goes over a set percentage more than what we've put in there, the computer has the ability and will cycle through and find out what's broken and automatically turn off that irrigation valve. And if that doesn't work, then it shuts off the whole section. So it'll help prevent water loss and damage to the park. We're also installing a weather station, which gives us the ability to monitor ET. ET is evapotranspiration. So the weather station will monitor the temperature, solar radiation, wind direction, wind speed, humidity for 24 hours, and then it gives us a number, and that number is how many inches of water has been taken out of the ground, so that way we can replenish only what's needed for the turf. And then with this system, we'll have the ability to expand. We're not limited. All we got to do is add more wire and decoders. And then this is a picture of Jen Conlon, our maintenance worker, controlling the irrigation system with her phone. Any questions?
I'm awfully impressed. I live in a house that's over 50 years, and we're in the process of redoing our sprinkler system at the moment. And so I know more about sprinklers than I did a year ago. And I think that this is just absolutely wonderful. One question, if you're using the water from the ditch now and you're not using domestic water, does that save a lot of money? You don't have to pay for, do you have to pay for the ditch water, or but you used to have to pay for the domestic water, correct?
Yes, I don't know what those set values were,
Yeah.
but if I'm assuming right, it's a certain dollar amount per 1,000 gallons.
Yes, and so they must be saving a good lot of money, it seems to me, which is great, and water, and domestic treated water. Putting treated water on grass, seems like a terrible waste, and so this is terrific.
Yeah, if I could. So using the irrigation water, or using the ditch water to irrigate it, is far less expensive. So basically, we own the water rights. We pay for service, regardless if we get them or not. We're paying for those water rights. So, and it's a fixed cost every year, and it's far cheaper than potable water. So it's a substantial savings to use ditch water over potable water.
Yeah.
I would assume that you have the ability to cut over to domestic water, potable water during periods of drought. So I assume that is in the system, right?
Yeah, so it's automatic.
Yeah.
If there's no water from Highland Ditch,
Right.
domestic takes over.
Yeah, because as we all know, that ditch the length of period of time that you can utilize the ditch some years is diminished today because there's no water.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And that was done in phase one,
Yeah.
that new domestic attachment.
And is that potable water, or is that treated?
Potable.
Oh, okay.
So does this stop flood irrigation on the pasture?
No.
That's still flood irrigated by the ditch? Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
I see any public comment? I see none on this item. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on here. We have Park District reports. I don't know. You want to take those? You guys want them? Let's do them. Colleen, you ready to go?
So I didn't have any highlights from Park District reports, but Dennis definitely has some for planning specific, and I think it'd be good for him to get some of those to you. So
Okay,
here's Dennis.
thank you.
I'll make this quick, and so I'll actually give you a highlight of the highlights. So specifically, this is going to be a very busy summer for park playground improvements specifically. Actually, one of them is underway, which is probably one of the largest expansions that we've seen in a while of the North Valley's Phase 5 sports complex. It's a $2.3 million project that has actually already started up at North Valleys. They'll be putting in about a 300 by 300 foot flex field, as well as a Babe Ruth field. Unfortunately, the bids did come in pretty high, so we weren't able to put in the Little League field. However, we're doing as much work as we possibly can, such that if the leagues have some money to throw at it, then we could hopefully complete it. But we've just exhausted all of our funding for that project, so that's under the way. Pretty big project. Sierra Nevada Construction is the prime contractor on that. Garden Shop is working underneath them. They'll be doing the landscaping and the grow-in for that project. That is slated to open, as we do have to grow in the turf, slated to open in the fall of 2018. Couple other park projects that will be kicking off this next Monday. Eagle Canyon Park will see a brand new playground and surfacing up there, as will Gator Swamp Park. So these are ripping out all existing playgrounds, putting in new equipment and rubberized tiles for fall protection. Question?
I do have a question. Are you, just a general question, are you seeing the bids go up because of the amount of constructions going on in the basin, and are they elevated over what you've seen in the past, or are they pretty standard?
Yes and no. I would say the larger project, the bid was a little bit higher. However, the last two park projects that we put out came in under.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So both.
Okay.
The other projects that we're moving forward on is we just had the bid opening for 3 parks that we bundled together for the Thomas Creek Park, the Whites Creek Park, as well as the Callahan Park. The Thomas Creek Park will actually be ripping out all the existing equipment, which is fairly unsafe, and putting in new playgrounds there for both 2 to 5 year olds as well as 5 to 12 year olds, new playground surfacing there. And then at Callahan and Whites, we'll be specifically just ripping out the bark, the mulch, the fiber, and sand at those playgrounds and putting in rubberized tiles underneath them, so we meet the ASTM standards for fall protection. And let's see, finally, Bowers Mansion playground, the large playground in the northernmost playground, if you will, adjacent to the large picnic pavilion, will be replaced this summer as well. That project will scale back the large sandy area. We'll be putting in new turf there and a new playground for 2 to 5 year old and 5 to 12 year olds, as well as relocating some of the existing swings so the users can have that as well. That project's slated to kick off in the middle of August and into September. Thomas, Whites, and Callahan will be in July and August. We're going to stagger the construction of those, so all 3 of them are only shut down for about 20 to 30 days, so they aren't all shut down at the same time. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
I don't know, you guys have any other questions for Dennis? If not, the only other thing we'd like is just a Cliff's Notes version of the golf report. If you guys could talk briefly about where golf stands. Well, and we just have a correction to Commissioner Buckley. So I don't know if Commissioner Buckley, you want to start us off here? I mean, we don't need the full report. We have the full report in our packet, so you can see the numbers.
I read the report, and I'd just like to comment that they seem to be doing very well. Is that correct?
For full disclosure, I have not read the report. I did not put that report together. So whatever the report says, the report says. My guess is What I have heard through various people is obviously the weather's turned good. We got through a very crazy winter. We have all the water that we could possibly need and then some. The courses have responded appropriately, and both are very playable, and things are good. So
They seem to be, my comment is, they seem to be making money, but there was one part of the report that I'd like to, without going, and that's where they give an itemized report on what was spent on hot dogs or brought in on hot dogs, every single food item at one place. And I think it's a waste of paper.
fair enough.
And, you know, it's just the kind of, well, I'm not going to be here, so my term is over. But I think the bottom line was what we all wanted to see, how many rounds and if they're making money, which they seem to be.
Yeah.
And so the details about the comings and goings of the small items, I think.
We can further refine that. My guess is that report's taken right out of our point of sale system.
Yes.
So it is itemized. We'll continue to make adjustments to this report and hopefully get you what you're looking for. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we do have one public comment on this item. Kathy Brandhorst, would you like to make a comment?
She say yes or no?
I think she's come.
I do have a couple directors' reports.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm also the United States President. I'm still, having troubles with my water. My water is getting very, very low because somebody else has to have my water. And I noticed this morning when I looked outside, the poles and wires are getting thicker out there. On my property, those wires are getting so many, I couldn't even believe how many there were, just to steal my gas and electric. And also, I can't find my air conditioning anymore in my home. It has been stolen because of the wires connected to my home. And the water is now that thin coming out of my faucet. I also don't get hot water because they're also connected to my water tank. Oh my. And I just wanted to tell you, it's just not fair, that these poles and wires are still hanging on my property. And it should be removed, but I kept hearing it's going to be removed. But I did see something awful that took place. The man did climb up the pole, and by the time he got to the top of the wire, he was shot down. So these people are very desperate, to steal the water and steal the gas and electric and to steal whatever they need. Like my phone service has been stolen, my TV service has been stolen, my cable has been stolen, and they're using it because they can use it through those wires that are connected to my home. And I just wanted to tell you too that I don't know what to do, to stop these people from shooting down innocent men that are trying to disconnect me from my home. And they were filled, he was filled with bullets. And when he fell down to the ground, everybody was in shock, to see so much blood falling from out of his body. But I don't know why this is continuing all over the city. Nobody has stopped this at all, for stealing houses, stealing apartments, stealing from other lands, other properties, even stealing houses and stealing the gas and electric.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, director's report.
So on behalf of our director, Dave Slaughter, I just want to give a couple updates. Obviously, next meeting is 4th of July holiday, so we will work on trying to reschedule that. I'll work through Joanna and the chair. I also want to let you know that Dave Solaro is taking some possible appointments to this Open Space and Regional Park Commission to the Board of County Commissioners next board meeting, which I believe is June 13th. If I'm not mistaken, he's taking 3 possible candidates for possible appointments. So hopefully we won't find ourselves in a position of not having a quorum in the future. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Director. Any comments? No? Ian?
I was wondering if I could make a suggestion for an agenda item.
You,
that- is that
well,
okay?
we'll move on to commissioner comments. And
Oh, well, I thought that's, okay, well, this is on this, sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Why don't you do public comment on the director's report?
I did, there was none.
You did, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Commissioner comment.
Commissioner comments. I will commissioner comments.
Some of you may know, and some of you may not, that the AB 379, which was the enabling legislation where park districts could be formed, was signed by the governor and sometime recently. And I would feel very happy if this commission could send a note of thank you to Amber Joyner for doing that. And we can't do it because we don't have a quorum, but I was wondering if it could be on the agenda for a future meeting, please. She did Trojan work on that particular bill. And a lot of the objections that various entities had were ironed out, and I think it's the form that it was passed should suit absolutely everybody.
Thank you, Ann. Nope. The only thing I would just say is, again, Amber Joyner, Assembly Person Joyner, she did a great job. It was a lot of work to do this. Also, Karen Mullen was instrumental, and Julie Conway played a huge role in getting this piece of legislation passed, which will enable local governments and people living in local areas to make their own decisions on how they want to fund parks in the state of Nevada. And that's very exciting. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Kitty Jung, who in the last days moving up to it was able to convince the rest of the county commission here that they should support AB 379, and they did support. So the county was behind it, and that made a big difference in the final push through the Senate. It really did. So thank you to Commissioner Jung as well. I have no other comments except for that there's a program put on by Washoe County Parks. It's called Walk with Washoe, and the first one is tonight. So it's at Rancho San Rafael. It's in the East Keystone Canyon. So it's a 1.2 mile walk. I believe the county manager will be there this evening. So it's a good chance to meet the county manager and go for a walk with some Parks Department personnel starting at 6:30. So that's pretty exciting. Besides that, I have nothing. Doug, no? All right. Last is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Don't see any. Okay, and today, for the record, if there's a record, we have Commissioner Ann Buckley, Doug Doolittle, and Nathan Daniel. All right, and we would be adjourned if we ever were active, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Nate.